Joaquín Archibaldo Guzmán Loera, better known by his nickname El Chapo, which means shorty in Spanish because of his short height, is one of the most notorious criminals in modern history. He was the leader of the Sinaloa Cartel, a drug trafficking organization that grew to become the most powerful in Mexico and one of the largest in the world. For decades, El Chapo controlled the flow of cocaine, heroin, marijuana, and methamphetamines into the United States and many other countries. He built a reputation for being ruthless, clever, and extremely difficult to capture. Yet what truly made his name legendary were his escapes from prison. El Chapo managed to escape twice from Mexico's maximum security prisons in 2001 and again in 2015. These escapes shocked the world, embarrassed the Mexican government, and showed just how deeply corruption and organized crime were connected in Mexico. To understand how El Chapo could carry out such escapes, it is important to know a little about his background. El Chapo was born in 1957 in a poor rural community in the state of Sinaloa, Mexico. His family lived in poverty, and from a young age, he learned to work the land. Like many in his area, his family grew marijuana and opium poppies, which were later processed into heroin. These crops were illegal, but they offered more money than farming corn or beans. As a teenager, Guzmán began working for drug traffickers. His ambition, intelligence, and lack of fear quickly helped him rise through the ranks. By the 1980s, he was working for Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, the so-called godfather of Mexican drug trafficking. When Felix Gallardo's network split apart, Guzmán founded his own group that became the Sinaloa Cartel. Through violence, bribery, and careful planning, El Chapo built his cartel into a global empire. By the 1990s, he was one of the most powerful criminals in Mexico. His influence stretched across continents, and his ability to move drugs into the United States made him extremely rich. But his growing power also attracted the attention of law enforcement. In 1993, he was captured in Guatemala and handed over to Mexican authorities. He was sentenced to more than 20 years in prison and placed in Puente Grande, a maximum security facility in the state of Jalisco. Many thought this was the end of his career. However, life inside prison was very different for El Chapo compared to ordinary prisoners. Through bribery, he was able to turn Puente Grande into something like his personal headquarters. Guards were paid off to bring him food, alcohol, and even women. He kept in constant contact with his cartel and continued to run operations from behind bars. Instead of being locked away, El Chapo turned prison into a safe house. Over the years, he slowly built a network of loyal staff inside the prison who were willing to help him for money. On January 19, 2001, El Chapo carried out his first escape. According to the most widely accepted version, he hid inside a laundry cart and was rolled out of the prison by a guard. Other reports claim he may have simply walked out disguised or assisted by staff. What is certain is that his escape was possible only because of massive corruption. Dozens of prison staff, including directors, guards, and kitchen workers, were later accused of helping him. It is said that El Chapo spent millions of dollars in bribes to ensure his freedom. With this simple but effective plan, he walked out of what was supposed to be one of the most secure prisons in the country. The 2001 escape was a humiliation for the Mexican government. President Vicente Fox had only recently taken office and had promised to reduce corruption and fight organized crime. Yet within weeks of his presidency, the most famous drug lord in the country had simply disappeared from prison. The escape made headlines worldwide and turned El Chapo into a legendary figure in the world of organized crime. After his escape, he went back to leading the Sinaloa Cartel, and over the next decade, the cartel became even more powerful and violent. For 13 years, El Chapo remained a fugitive. During this time, Mexico entered one of the most violent periods in its history. The drug war intensified as rival cartels fought each other for territory and as government forces tried to bring down the cartels. The Sinaloa Cartel was involved in brutal conflicts with groups like the Juarez Cartel, the Beltran-Leyva organization, and later the Zetas. Thousands of people were killed, including cartel members, police, soldiers, journalists, and innocent civilians. Despite the chaos, El Chapo managed to avoid capture. He hid in the rugged mountains of Sinaloa, moved frequently between safe houses, and built secret tunnels to escape whenever authorities closed in. To many people in his home state, he became a Robin Hood figure because he gave money and food to poor communities, even while running a violent empire. In February 2014, after years of intelligence work and cooperation between Mexican authorities and the United States Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, El Chapo was finally captured again. He was found in a seaside apartment in the city of Mazatlan, Sinaloa. His arrest was celebrated as a huge victory for Mexico's war on drugs. This time, he was placed in Altiplano Prison, another maximum security facility near Mexico City. Officials promised that there would be no repeat of the 2001 escape. The prison had cameras monitoring every cell, heavily armed guards, and strict security measures. Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto even stated publicly that it would be impossible for El Chapo to escape again. But El Chapo had already begun planning his second and most famous escape. On the night of July 11, 2015, he vanished from his cell. Prison guards noticed that he had gone into the shower area of his cell and failed to reappear. When they checked, they found a hole in the floor. That hole led to a tunnel unlike anything the world had ever seen. The tunnel stretched for about 1.5 kilometers, nearly a mile, from El Chapo's cell to a construction site outside the prison walls. It was large enough for a person to walk through comfortably, measuring about 1.7 meters high and nearly a meter wide. The tunnel had lights, air pipes for ventilation, and tracks for a small motorcycle that had been mounted on rails. The motorcycle was used to move tools, dirt, and perhaps even El Chapo himself. The precision of the tunnel was astonishing. It reached directly under the shower in El Chapo's cell, the only area not fully monitored by security cameras. The escape was an engineering marvel and also a symbol of corruption. Digging such a tunnel required months of planning, specialized knowledge, and significant financial resources. Experts later said the project must have cost millions of dollars and would have required dozens of workers. The fact that no one in the prison noticed or reported the noise of digging raised serious questions. Many people believed that officials inside the prison, or even at higher levels of government, must have been bribed to ignore the signs. News of the escape spread around the world. Once again, the Mexican government faced international embarrassment. Peña Nieto had promised that an escape would be impossible, yet it had happened in an almost cinematic way. For ordinary Mexicans, the escape confirmed what many already suspected, that corruption was so deep in the system that even the most secure prisons could not be trusted. For the United States, it was a frightening reminder that El Chapo remained free to run his cartel and send drugs across the border. After his escape, El Chapo was on the run for 6 months. He hid in the mountains and used his network of safe houses and tunnels. He even gave an interview to actor Sean Penn and Mexican actress Kate del Castillo, which drew enormous attention but also helped authorities track him. In January 2016, Mexican Marines raided a house in Los Mochis, Sinaloa, where El Chapo was hiding. After a gunfight, he tried to escape through a sewer system but was captured again. This time, the Mexican government did not take any chances. In January 2017, El Chapo was extradited to the United States. he was put on trial in New York, where prosecutors presented overwhelming evidence of his crimes, including testimony from former cartel members. In 2019, he was convicted on charges of drug trafficking, murder conspiracy, and money laundering. He was sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years. Today, he is held at ADX Florence in Colorado, the most secure prison in the United States, known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies. The two escapes of El Chapo had lasting impacts. They damaged the reputation of the Mexican government and showed how deeply corruption was embedded in the justice system. They allowed the Sinaloa Cartel to continue growing and caused enormous violence in Mexico. At the same time, they turned El Chapo into a legend. To some, he was a folk hero who outsmarted the system. To others, he was a dangerous criminal whose actions brought misery to thousands of families. His story inspired books, documentaries, and television series, cementing his place in popular culture. In conclusion, the prison escapes of El Chapo are more than just dramatic stories about a clever criminal. They reveal the weakness of institutions, the power of corruption, and the challenges of fighting organized crime. His first escape in 2001 showed that bribery could open prison doors. His second escape in 2015 showed that money and planning could defeat even the highest levels of security. Yet, his final capture and extradition proved that no criminal, no matter how powerful, can escape justice forever. Today, El Chapo's legend lives on, but his freedom is gone. He now spends his life behind bars, and the world continues to study his story as a lesson in crime, power, and corruption.